Hello and welcome to the video overview of the Desktop Authority Setup tool. In this video, we will go over what the Setup tool is, how to access it, and perform a complete walkthrough of all its available maintenance operations. The Desktop Authority Setup tool is a utility that can be used to perform various maintenance operations, including backup, restore, shrink, and perform maintenance on the Desktop Authority databases, add or remove super users, Iis Management including Desktop Authority's websites, security certificate, change Desktop Authority's service ports and user accounts, configure SMTP settings, application and optimization settings, domain selector, product improvement, and off-network remote management. At this point, we will proceed to the walkthrough of the Desktop Authority Setup tool. To launch the Desktop Authority Setup tool, go to Start, Quest, Desktop Authority Setup tool. The first tab that is presented upon launching the Setup tool is the Database Configuration tab. On this tab, you connect to and check properties of the Desktop Authority database and configuration files. Connect to the database by selecting the SQL Server instance name. Next, select the database credentials by either using the current logged on user's credentials, selecting Use Windows Authentication, or use the SQL Server's SA account. Once the desired option is selected, connect to the database by pressing the Connect button. A green check mark will appear next to the Connect button if the database connection has been established. Many of the subsequent tabs requires a database connection, so this should be your first step before moving on to any other tabs. Next, click the Check Properties button to determine if the SQL Server configurations are valid. A green check will show beside each one that is found to be acceptable. If any issues are found, a warning icon will be shown with some information about the issue. Further details about the problem can be found by checking the Log tab. On this tab, you can also change some of Desktop Authority's properties by clicking the Edit Properties button. Here you can change the SQL Server instance and authentication method, Desktop Authority Manager Service credentials, and application pool identity. The second tab is Database Tasks. On this tab, you can perform various maintenance operations on the backend SQL databases. Under the Database Name dropdown, select one of the two Desktop Authority databases. This will open the various tasks that can be performed on the selected database. You will be able to backup and restore the database, shrink or increase the allocated database size, and perform maintenance operations such as rebuilding indexes and database consistency checks. The next tab is Super User Management. A super user is an attribute of a user or group that provides specialized system access. The super user attribute is designed for privileged users who will have unrestricted access to the system. Regardless of the roles the user belongs to, they will be able to view and update all objects in the system. Default super users are added during the installation of Desktop Authority. Others may be added to the super users list by an existing super user. This can be done in the Desktop Authority Manager or in the Desktop Authority Setup tool. The super user list in the Setup tool will list all existing super users and groups. This list may be updated by adding a new user or group to the list. Super users may be removed from within the Setup tool or within the Desktop Authority Manager. To add a super user, enter the username into the field provided or click Browse to locate a user or group within Active Directory. Once the username is entered, click the Add button to add the super user to the list. To remove a super user, just select an existing user or group from the list and click the Remove button. The Iis Management Tab shows the status of Iis. Here you can start, stop, or restart Iis by clicking the respective buttons. You can also create or change the security certificate used for the Desktop Authority console website. Upon installation of Desktop Authority, a self-signed certificate is automatically created. However, on this tab, you can create a new self-signed certificate if you feel that the security model has been compromised in some way. To do this, select the Create Self-Signed Certificate option and then click Apply. Click the Refresh button. Now a new certificate has been applied, and the Desktop Authority configuration files have been updated with the new information. You can also remove or refresh an existing certificate by selecting the Select an Existing Certificate option. Select the certificate in the list and then click the Remove or Refresh button. The last option you have here is to import a certificate, like one created by a third party. Select the Import Certificate radio button and then browse to the certificate file. Once the file is selected, click Apply to use the imported certificate. The Website section on this tab shows the current status of the Desktop Authority Iis website. And finally, the Session Timeout section allows you to change the amount of time the Desktop Authority console session can remain active while not in use. The Service Management tab allows you to manage the Desktop Authority Manager and Operation services. You can start, stop, and restart the services, as well as change the account, password, and even the port used for the services. The Log tab displays a running log of the activities the setup tool has performed. Any issues found on the various tabs should have more information located within the log. The Global System Settings tab gives the ability to configure SMTP settings, report scheduler, HTTP settings, ADMX files location, default log file location, and impersonation settings. Within Desktop Authority, you can email reports to specific users or a distribution list. To do so, the SMTP settings must be configured. You can change the default path to be used when pushing client log files to a server under default log file location. The HTTP server setting can be used to change the server name that the operations service is running on. The Desktop Authority operations service runs web services and uses the server name to communicate. ADMX files locations allows you to enter a path where the ADMX files will be copied to when imported into Desktop Authority. This is the folder Desktop Authority will use to manage all imported ADMX files. The Report Scheduler plugin settings section has the setting to check for scheduled reports every certain number of minutes. Here you can use the number of minutes the report scheduler should use to pull for reports that are ready to be run. The default value here is 10 minutes. And the last setting located on this tab is Impersonation Settings. Select this checkbox to allow Desktop Authority to access Active Directory and network objects under the context of the user who was logged into the web console. If this box is unchecked, which is the default option, these actions are performed under the context of the Desktop Authority Manager service. On the Application Settings tab, there are 3 optimization settings. The first being number of threads that are used for updating server cache. This lets you change the number of threads used for updating the current status of the Update and Desktop Authority administrative services, replication status, and all the other server data represented in the Server Manager grid. Increasing the thread count will allow the servers represented in Server Manager to be updated in parallel. However, the thread count should be kept at a reasonable amount as not to overload the system. The next setting, Server Cache Update Time, specifies the period of time between server updates in the Server Manager grid. Following this period, the previously retrieved data is considered out of date and will be updated. An option underneath that, Disable Server Cache Update, will turn off all timers for updating out-of-date server statuses in the Server Manager grid. If disabled, an update will have to be requested for a specific server manually. Turning off automatic updates can be useful if the network load needs to be reduced. Finally, the status gateway is used by Server Manager to receive statuses from the Desktop Authority services. Using the number of DB connections allowed for status gateway option, you can change the number of database connections used for that communication. Specify the maximum number of database connections allowed for this purpose. The default number of connections configured is 30. By default, Desktop Authority will automatically search for resources on the domain to which the Desktop Authority Manager is installed to. On the Domain tab, if you have other domains that need to be part of this search for resources, add the extra domains to this list. To add a domain, type or browse for the domain name and then click the Add button. To remove a domain, highlight the domain in the list and then click the Remove button to delete it. The Product Improvement tab is used to assist in the development of new features, as well as drive future improvements. Feedback from this program provides product management with valuable insights into how our products are being used. No personal contact information is ever collected. Click More Info to learn more about the details of the Product Improvement program. Select the I want to make Desktop Authority better box to participate in the Product Improvement program. To cancel your participation, clear this box. If any changes were made, click Update to save. Finally, the ONRM tab is used to configure the off-network remote management feature. Status shows the current status of the off-network remote management feature. Click the Disable or Enable button at the bottom of the tab to change the current status. The Ias Configuration section shows the Ias virtual directory of off-network remote management. The default is set to ONRM. However, you can change that directory name to something else. The default port is set to 1529 and can be changed as well. To make a change to the directory name or port, click the Disable button at the bottom of the ONRM tab. This will disable the feature. When you see the disabled status, it has been disabled successfully. Enter your desired virtual directory name and TCP port. Click the Enable button at the bottom of the ONRM tab, and you will see the status change back to Enabled. And that will conclude our video overview of the Desktop Authority Setup tool. To learn more about Desktop Authority, visit support.quest.com/desktop-authority.